On today's Warehouse Safety Tips Wednesday, we'll be covering why it's important to look up, down, and all around. So stay tuned. Welcome to Warehouse Safety Tips. You can find the show notes to each episode, links to information mentioned on the podcast, the social media platforms we're on, and anything else related to the podcast at warehousesafetytips.com. Now, if you're a seasoned podcast listener, this podcast is going to be different from most you listen to. It's based around exactly what the name implies, warehouse safety tips. And since the people in this industry are busy, we know that time is money and each episode will be as short and to the point as possible. And now, with all of that out of the way, let's get to the podcast. Where do the subjects for this podcast come from? Well, the majority of them come from having worked in facilities myself, but others come from various experiences. For today's podcast, the inspiration comes from traveling with my daughter for a college visit. In general, flying has its own safety protocols, rules, and regulations. Add to that, at this time of the podcast, the U.S. is still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. So as you can imagine, traveling by air is under a microscope more than ever right now. Even before you leave for your trip, you're making sure that you have everything you're supposed to and assuring that you don't have anything you're not supposed to have as well. You're under time constraints, you're dealing with traffic, and you're negotiating your way through all sorts of obstacles before even getting into the complicated part of the travel. Messages and instructions are coming from every direction, and you're going through security and trying to get everything completed in time to make your flight. And if all goes well, you board the aircraft and the instructions start all over again. The point of mentioning all this is that you have to look and pay attention to what's going on up, down, and all around you. The same is true of staying safe, compliant, and productive at your facility. From the moment you arrive on site, you have rules, regulations, guidelines, safety signs and floor markings, literature, instruction, messages, and a whirl of activity all around you. And although it's extremely easy to become blind to them, you have to pay attention to them every second you're at your facility. Failing to do so could result in everything from a mistake to a fatality. So making a habit of looking up, down, and all around at all times will contribute to keeping you and those you work with safe. Before moving on, here's a word from one of our sponsors. If you've ever been to or worked in a warehouse, you know just how important safety is to both management and staff. It's almost impossible to go 10 steps without seeing safety tape, angles, signs, and/or safety products. It's these items that show us how to be safe and avoid danger in the workplace. And if you're looking for the best products to make this happen, look no further than Mighty Line. Mighty Line floor signs and floor markings offer the best industrial products out there. We're proud to have Mighty Line as the official floor sign and floor marking company for the Warehouse Safety Tips podcast and site. Go to mightylinetape.com/safety tips to request a sample pack of their incredible safety signs and floor markings. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Warehouse Safety Tips. If you visit warehousesafetytips.com, you'll find the show notes for this episode and access to all of our blog posts, previous podcasts, advertiser information, and much more. Thank you for listening to Warehouse Safety Tips and have a safe day.